Yo, Munir,
Yo, Rob.
how you doing?
I am very well, Rob. I have just gotten inside from doing some yard work. It's invigorating. It's a little crisp outside, which means that, you can get sweaty without really feeling bad. And the leaves are falling and I'm raking. And so my body's moving and I'm feeling ready and rocking and rolling. How about you?
It's sweater weather, obviously. Obviously, I'm doing great. Actually, interestingly, I did some rigging myself. We do have a ego blower, leaf blower
Yes.
that I have used. Um, just nothing really seems to beat raking.
I like it. I have an electric blower as well, and I find that raking is more efficient or maybe more fulfilling for me. I don't know.
Oh, God bless. Thank all those that came before us that made the tools that we're able to use in our daily lives.
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed.
Well, I have some good news. We have some segments this week. We have like a
Okay.
structure. We have an agenda. And this week, Munir, here's what I'd like to talk about.
Hit it.
I want to
Hit
know.
me.
I want to know what you did this week.
Okay.
We'll talk about what I did this week too. I want to read you something,
Mhm.
and there's something we need to talk about.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah. So let's
I,
start off with
I'm ready.
uh, telling me how was your week? What'd you do?
So I did just get back from being on the road a little bit. I like traveling. Some people hate it. I actually am usually invigorated by traveling. And I was in New York City, which the vibrancy, we walked across Central Park, played a little frisbee. We were there for his 60th birthday party, 20th wedding anniversary, my own. I went from there to Washington, D.C. to the AMA, that's the American Marketing Association, the AMA Symposium for the Marketing of Higher Education, which was also just filled with energy and, believe it or not, optimism, despite what's going on in higher education in America today. And then I went to Dartmouth College for the 231st Alumni Council meeting. So I wore some green, and I'm ready to tell you all about it if you want. I could talk for days. It was a lot of excitement and energy. But I heard you might have some things to tell me about where you were.
It's interesting that you were at a marketing event, as I was also at a marketing event. Um, I was down also in New York City, by the way. Imagine that. I was
Imagine.
down at 225 Liberty,
Okay.
across the street from One World Trade. Some might
Oh,
know it as Brookfield Place. Some
okay.
might know it as the home formerly to Time Inc. Group.
All
Um,
right.
and I wonder if this is a New York slash Chicago thing. You would know, you lived in Chicago, where we can
Mhm.
just throw out an address of a building, right? Oh, it's like, oh, are you at 1271?
Right.
I don't know. Chicago loves their architecture, so I presume there's a little bit of that there, or the Leo Burnett building,
Well,
or
that's 35 West Wacker. And I think if you told anybody who worked at Leo Burnett, 35 West Wacker, they would instantly know what you were talking about.
yeah,
1515 Broadway.
it's
You know
another
that
good
one?
one. That's another good one. Well, let me tell you, at 225 Liberty, by the way, I spent every Tuesday for 2 years supporting Time Inc. sellers and media planners, helping them transition from print sales to digital and social sales. Every Tuesday for 2 years, from 2015 ish to 2017 ish, with my dear friend Matt Brown and a lot of dear friends from Time Inc. Just before their acquisition by Meredith. And
Wow.
in fact, you could tell who the McKinsey folks were walking the halls as they were evaluating Time Inc. and preparing them for sale because they stood out. Let's just say that.
Is it like the
much,
FBI with glasses?
I mean, kind of. So much love to all my Time Inc. folks who were so gracious in hosting us. But the ARF, Advertising Research Foundation, was
ARF.
hosting ARF, yeah, not to be confused with ALF, which was a phenomenal 80s sitcom. But ARF, Advertising Research Foundation, was hosting their Marketing Effectiveness Accelerator. There was a one-day symposium. And we talked a lot about media measurement and ad effectiveness. And there was one thing that really stood out to me that I thought was super interesting, and I'd love to get your perspective on. It's the balance between building long-term brand equity while driving short-term sales outcomes.
Oh yeah. I mean, were we talking about this? Somebody was just talking to me about the fact that, how can you afford as a CMO to build long-term brand equity when the average tenure of a CMO is like 6 months? So it defaults to show me the money today because you're not around in 6 months to like have to show you the money tomorrow. Yes. Wow, that balance, quarterly, you got to meet your quarterly numbers. And in an era where valuations are frothy, depending on whom you speak with, you really need to make your sales goals and show expansion, or the people that have provided you with capital start to get antsy. And that doesn't bode well then for the CEO, which definitely doesn't bode well for the CMO. And it's kind of like the coaching carousel starting in sport. You lost your first 3 games and now you're fired. So I think that this balance that you're talking about has some real, well, you might know, you were just at the conference. You tell me what happened.
I appreciate that. And I was knowledge seeking.
Okay.
I was there as a learner. I was there to be educated, and I went with an open mind, and it had me leaving overwhelmed almost.
Oh.
But in that I'm not a practitioner, right?
Okay.
So it's not my objective is to help the people that are actually tasked with these strategies and these decisions. What was really interesting to me, though, was the idea of understanding if I can move any of my KPIs by 1 point, where would that investment have the most impact?
Oh, yeah.
And so the conversation was about, let's say, well-known, what's the word for it, but high penetration. Now, high penetration CPG brand.
Okay. Yep.
They have awareness,
Right.
right? So moving 1 point in awareness wouldn't have the same impact as moving 1 point in some other KPI that they're able to measure.
Right.
And then the question becomes, if it's harder to measure, should I pay less attention to it?
That reminds me of some other things that are happening in our society writ large. We're just going to stop reporting on stuff because then you won't care.
Wow.
In a world of like data, all of a sudden it's like, we're just not going to watch that right now.
Amazing. Well, what I am curious about, because if your agency is tied to the CMO, how that impacts your business too.
Oh, yeah. I think that, we have to be thoughtful about the strategies that we bring and pragmatic. So we are always looking at what's best for the business first. Sometimes that's not best for the individual in the short term, in the very, very short term. And it's a rare client that is able to then bring that presentation to their constituents, and we do try to help with this, which is like, look, right now it might be flat or it might take a little dip, but then look on the other side of our projections where we think this could go. Then you tell us. We can have incremental that, in our business, 0.5%, 1% is kind of minimal. We're trying to affect changes that are much larger. Usually when we start working with clients, the hardest part then is that we have to beat ourselves, which is hard. But, the pathway of incremental growth with these performance-based algorithmic channels is kind of this well-worn path, which is like incremental, like you're talking about. And at some point, if you want to switch or shift or get like a exponential growth, you have to do something slightly different. And that takes risk. And that risk is difficult. Either that risk is give me more investment. We often talk about media as a replacement for energy and energy time. You can have time. So if you just need incremental growth over time and your business is good, then take the time. Don't spend the capital now because there's inherent risk in spending the capital. But if your business can't afford the time because you need to make numbers now, then you might need to invest to overcome time. And so you're overcoming time with money. And that's what we often talk about. And that money then accelerates your awareness levels. It'll help. People are always trying to get a home run with some viral moment. And even that is usually manufactured with some level of investment, an investment of time, an investment of money, or an investment of focus in a corporate environment. So we are often having to provide our clients with options that would suggest, at a level of risk tolerance, this is the safest option. This is maybe the most the one with the best opportunity of success, but the highest risk. And then together as a team, we decide where we feel from a strategic level and from an overarching business level is the best option to go ahead with. Does that answer your question?
I love that. I love that. And it actually got me thinking about art and science of marketing. And so I thought to myself, well, how long has the ARF been around?
Right.
Saying, and also part of this presentation was the Marketing Science Institute as well, which was founded, MSI was founded in 1961.
Okay.
But the ARF was founded in 1936.
Apparently we've been measuring media for longer than we've been around.
Well, I'm thinking about Dad's advertising books. A.B. I think. Didn't he have the history of advertising, or there was a certain book? I could be misremembering. But again, getting back to the idea that this is not new to us in our generation.
Right. Well, even Mad Men had some of that advertising element to it. And then I was just on LinkedIn and somebody posted letters from, maybe it was DDB, one of the DDB guys, because DDB as a brand is unfortunately being sunset by its holdco. And so lots of folks who have had some experience with DDB have been posting nostalgic things. And I think one of the letters, if I might have this completely wrong, but one of the letters was about one of these founders talking about how the business was almost getting too structured. And this was a letter from like the 40s. So that argument as well of like brand and awareness and data isn't new either. Everything old is new again.
Amazing. Well, I wonder if that is something that you experienced yourself in Washington, D.C., or at least what came out of that experience.
I had some fantastic presentations when I was in DC. One, it was amazing to me. I've been working in higher ed marketing for 15 years now. It was incredible to me how many CMOs there are now, When I started, it was, there were marketing people and sometimes not even. There were enrollment people, and enrollment people happen to cover the marketing. But now institutions have chief marketing officers, they have well-defined communications offices, and they have strategies that are omnichannel, and they are living between um, marketing, advertising, and communications, and sometimes blending across. And some of those institutions are doing work that is transformative. They have relationships with a great group of fans, as well as promoters, their alumni generally. And one of the great presentations I saw was from Texas A&M University. They had a recent rebrand, and the challenge point from the CMO was, what would happen if the world's one of the I'm gonna screw this up, and I shouldn't, because the guy, we should keep this for our section later, about reading you something, and I will find it and read it to you because it's worth reading to you. And apologies to the talk, but I put it on LinkedIn myself because it was impactful. It's one of the top 50 universities, is unknown to most of America. And yeah, they did a fantastic brand awareness campaign with a call to action and an overarching campaign framework, as did SMU. SMU launched a new brand because they were entering the ACC conference. So it was precipitated by sports, but led into its academic heritage as well. And if you know anything about vibe schools, they're having a moment, and that type of messaging is helping that vibe. And then there was a presentation from UT San Antonio, formerly known as UTSA, but they're leaning into UT San Antonio. A former colleague of mine, Susanna Diaz Rosencrantz, did a phenomenal talk and showed receipts about investment levels. And she took us through how she looks for the thing that I was talking about earlier. If you give me additional budget, here are the projections for returns. And therefore, and she gave him three options. She said, we could do what we're doing today, and here's where I think we will get. We could do this, and here's where we think we will get. And we could do this, and here's where we think we can get. And those options allowed them strategically to make a decision on their budget. That's all really exciting stuff for me. And there were other great presentations, but those really stuck in my mind. And that had a difference because, for example, SMU and Texas A&M University were talking about brand campaigns, and UT San Antonio was talking about performance-driven digital campaigns with algorithmic media for the most part. And that's that tension, that dynamic tension that we're talking about. But both Texas A&M University and SMU chose to invest in brand and put a campaign behind it. How about you?
Well, I also saw there was a lot of connection going on. There was a lot of appreciation for each other for being there together. You just sharing the experiences that you had and the knowledge sharing that was going on, but also the ability to share that in person. And we've talked about that a lot, right? We talked about it with Heidi and events. And I wonder how that changes how you learn and connect with people on the challenges that are in front of you.
I think it helps to know that there's a community of people that are dealing with some of the same challenges. And I think having these moments of sharing, and the great thing about a conference versus a Zoom or a webinar and chat in a webinar is that when you're at a conference, you can have a quiet sidebar with somebody where you ask a potentially vulnerable question, right? You're exposing yourself vulnerably about what you may not know and asking for advice or seeking advice. And people are really wanting and willing to help. Yet, in a lot of our interactions like this, where we're on a screen, that there's less of that ability to kind of open your, I don't know if there's less of ability. I feel that people are not quite as vulnerable in these scenarios. So a conference allows you to have that offshoot conversation with somebody that allows you to learn and share, or even after a presentation where you have an interaction with somebody. So I'm going to get my quote right now for you. So by the way, it was Ethan Braden, who is the gentleman, and Michelle Blakely, who gave the talk for Texas A&M University. And I will shout them out by name because they deserve it. They did a great job. And the question that was posed was, what if one of America's biggest universities was unknown to half of the country? And their presentation was titled, Waking the Sleeping Giant, how Texas A&M is quickly building a powerful brand defining marketing engine. And that was what was also special. So it wasn't, to your earlier point about short-term versus long-term, they did things to get short-term results while building a foundation and framework and an engine for continued creation of relevant content that would bring their university to the forefront of the conversation and leverage the assets of their university, which you could translate to brand or company. You have experts at your company, you have things that you do at your company. Leverage those in a way that you get credit for it and also is delivering value to our global conversation or our national conversation or your industry. And in this case, these guys did both. So they gave an industry talk that helped others like myself advocate for the type of change that they were doing, as well as their colleagues. And they looked at it not as a competitive situation, because higher education is for the benefit of the good. So higher ed marketers have a little bit of a different mindset, which is if we can promote the whole industry, everybody does better. It doesn't have to be zero sum. And so that was a phenomenal talk. And I think that was a good takeaway of how can you balance brand messaging with performance and then build a foundational approach to allow you to succeed on an ongoing basis. So you have short-term results, but a long-term growth potential.
I think this is where I commented about universities creating their own media companies.
Yes.
I still love that idea.
I agree.
They have their own publishing.
Yes.
Right? UCLA, Princeton, Yale, very notable publishing houses.
Yes.
If that's the right term.
Yeah, no, they're publishing houses.
Why did they not get into media?
That's a great question, Rob.
And from my perspective, there's no time like the present. And when I was having this conversation with a tenured professor, actually formerly of Texas A&M.
Oh, that.
How about that?
How about
that as a tie-in? How about that as a tie-in? And they talked a lot about how professors gain tenure.
Yeah.
And the change would have to come from that in order to invest time and resources into the professor's work and research to be leveraged for things other than published papers or books.
Yes, you're right.
But maybe we need to have a dedicated higher ed session, or maybe you should think about, or me, because I know, we should think about a guest to talk about higher ed.
I have so many great people to bring to a conversation together speaking about higher ed. So I'll take that on. I got work to do. I will reach out and we will get a few people or couple people in, and I'm excited to do that.
I love it.
Good shout.
Well, I would like to read you something too, if I may.
Please do. Wait, that's a
On my
segment.
hey, we did it. On my walk today, I was listening to Tricycle Talks, as I want to do. And it was an older episode going back to August 2020. But this person is a brilliant writer and thinker and teacher and educator, and she's been on as a guest multiple times. Her name is Sebene Selassie. She is half Ethiopian and half Eritrean, and she wrote a book called You Belong, A Call for Connection. And I immediately thought about you, Munir, your name, Munir, as well as the reason behind starting our podcast. Part of it was for practice what you preach, and kind of exercising a content creator muscle, as well as brand building, but ultimately to connect with each other and to connect with our friends who we don't see on a regular basis. But I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your experience of belonging and connection as you came to the United States from England in the 70s and entered school age here with the name Munir.
Yeah. So Rob, being a Munir Haddad is not always a straightforward thing in life. And being a Munir Haddad who represents the way I represent, I think a couple of people made comments about the fact that you tend to have a darker tone in your background and I tend to be blown out white. But I don't feel that way, and that doesn't mean anything one way or the other. And I don't get treated that way. People don't know quite what to make of me. So coming as a youngster, I didn't notice it. I wasn't, my, cognitive functions were not developed to receive negativity that way as a young person. Probably the first time it impacted me being a Munir was middle school. And, middle school kids try to find things to other you to make themselves better or feel better. And this ties into a conversation that actually a wonderful conversation that had me up past my bedtime in Dartmouth at Dartmouth College, which happened a lot at Dartmouth College. You have a group of individuals who are sitting together late at night, talking passionately about, and this was amazing. Like, one gentleman was happened to be South Asian, and he made some comments about how the traditional approach to what Dartmouth was as an institution in the 70s before they went co-ed, and then where we were now, and then others in the room. There was a gentleman who was Mexican American. There was another gentleman who identified as Jewish, and he was saying that we only let him in because he was Jewish. And then there was me who sat down and like, oh, well, you're Munir, so you could be here. And then a woman who happened to be Asian came, and then a gentleman who was Irish American came in. And it was a wonderful, and then somebody else, but we attracted people. And we attracted people because we were speaking passionately about this situation that we had felt about being othered in our lives and what otherness meant. So to Ms. Selassie's point about belonging, and to what your question was about having a name like Munir, I don't belong to any one culture. Somebody asked, and I said, oh, I'm a citizen of the world, which is a line our dad used to use. And I feel as well, because I am not Arabic. I don't pass, although I am, and I feel it. I am not English, though I can talk properly for you for the rest of this podcast if you'd like. And so for the rest of the time, I'll be English, right? So I can actually not just code switch, but I speak two languages, English and English. And so, and then I moved to New York, where, in order to fit in my community, I started talking like this because it was safe for me, because otherwise, people were already giving me shit for like my name. And so by fitting in and like talking like everybody else, I distinctly remember the day, Rob, I was 12 years old, that I went from saying tomato, and I said tomato, to saying tomato. And I remember like the cognitive, like, whoa, and like, I'm going to do it. And so your question is valid and real, and it's real to me. And having been born externally and then growing up in the US and then going back to places like Beirut or London, but not being there quite enough to own them either, is, some people. I read a book by a woman who was of Levantine Arab descent. And the book was about her otherness in the States, but it was really like, it read like a real, like a really open wound for her. And it's not that for me. And sometimes I feel guilty because I hear about the otherness of others in that talk that I was telling you about. There were some people that had some really negative experience and some really negative emotion attached to it. And I've had some negative things happen to me. Don't get me wrong. I've been on my hands and knees with my hand behind my back in Texas. So, but I don't feel badly. And maybe that's because I can pass. But this idea of otherness is real. And some people feel it acutely and in a negative way. And some people are made to feel badly for their otherness. And sometimes people try to use that as a way to try to push them down. And the feeling is real. And sometimes the actual pushing down is real. So I can't take somebody else's experiences and try to put my own on top of them. But I know that I have been able to be at peace with myself in this world where I don't really belong to any one space, but maybe to all of them. At least that's my approach. How about you? I mean, you grew up in our family.
I did. And I want to read you a quote from her book first, because I think it summarizes really well what your experience is and what you've been sharing. And she writes, although we are not one, we are not separate. And although we are not separate, we are not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful. I got chills when you read that. That's a good writer.
She really is wonderful, and I recommend anybody who's listening check out her interview on Tricycle Talks, either one of them. And so our father was Palestinian, born in Jerusalem in 1930. He and his family left.
He was
in
British.
April 19. British mandate. Yeah. It does say British mandate Palestine on his birth certificate.
Right.
Mind you.
And he had a British passport.
British mandate Palestine. I have Jiddo's passport with the stamp of the last time they ever left Palestine. And they left as a family in April of 48. And they went to live with family in Beirut for the summer with the expectation of returning, and they never returned. Dad was 18 and Uncle Nabil was 13. And they restarted their lives in Beirut. And you're right. Dad would say, I am a citizen of the world.
Yep.
He is someone who lived in India. He lived in Germany. He lived in London, where he met her mother. So
India.
Yeah. Didn't I say India? I think I said India. I think that was the first one I said. That's okay. But met and married mom in England, which is where you were born and welcomed to this world of ours. And then you guys moved to the States as Dad was tasked with opening up the first transcontinental direct flight from Beirut to JFK. Cargo flight, that is, cargo flight.
Yeah.
And I came along soon thereafter in November of 1976. And go ahead.
You always, well, no, you keep going. I don't want to put stuff on you.
So but I think what's interesting is what you're talking about is the layers of experience. And actually, Seb talks about the inherited and passed down traumas, even if it's lowercase t, and the coping mechanisms of life that are inherited from our ancestors. And it is, and in fact, I was going to ask this at the Thanksgiving table, but I wasn't sure I should do that this year. But it is a fascinating conversation to consider what we also inherit and live with, and bring to each other through our ancestors. And growing up in Tuckahoe, New York, shout out to Tuckahoe 914, represent, and Eastchester, and Bronxville, we experienced a lot of code switching, and a lot of people did. And not just us. In regards to how you assimilate, I think is a really interesting question, but also how you connect. Ways in which we can build connections and relationships and friendships for life that are founded on compassion and love.
Yes.
And so I think ultimately, as long as that's our guiding light, that is where we learn to appreciate each other and our differences and celebrate our differences as well. So I appreciate you. I love you. But I think there's one more thing we need to talk about.
Okay. What do we need to talk about?
In the span of 24 hours, 2 people said to me, you two are the happiest people on the internet.
Yeah. Yes, we are. Why not?
It could have been you're the happiest people on LinkedIn. But we do live outside of LinkedIn. Check us out on YouTube at Yo Munir.
I actually heard it, one of those comments, because I read one of them, was on the internet.
Was it? It was Matt Worst. Much love to Matt Worst. Did he say on the internet?
I thought so. Yeah. Either way, we'll own it that way. I mean, I feel agreed. That's amazing.
Agreed.
Agreed. I would like to be the happy person in your life too, Rob, and I love you too. And I think that we can have hard conversations and still progress. And I'm looking forward to that.
Amazing. Well, until next time.
See ya.
Love you guys.
Yo!